Okay, it looks like we are live.
All right. Go ahead and get started.
I was just talking on mute. Sorry. Welcome everybody. I'm glad to see everyone is healthy face, and we've got a pretty full agenda tonight. So how about we dive in right away? Housekeeping, Rodney.
Yes. How many folks do we need for a quorum here? Have enough? 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. We have 8 out of 12. 8 out of 14. 8 out of 13.
That seems like it'd be enough.
Yeah, that's enough. We need half, right?
I think so.
Okay. So would like to make a motion to approve the August Community Tree Council minutes and the August Community Tree Council Committee meetings minutes.
All those in favor?
I'll second it.
I'll second. Oh,
Right. Ayes have it. Great. Okay, so just to review the action items from the last meeting, and one was vote to dissolve the CPC ad hoc interview committee. That was done so unanimously, and replace it with a work group of 3 to 4 CPC members. And I think we'll go over that in a second.
hey, Sean. Sean, it's really hard to hear you. I don't know if there's a way that you can get closer to your microphone, or I can only hear like 80% of your stuff. Maybe it's just my end. I don't know.
Is that better?
No, it's him.
Better? Okay, cool. So I'll just start back where I was reviewing the action items from last meeting in August, and that was vote to dissolve the CPC ad hoc interview committee meeting. That was done so unanimously, and that is specifically to replace it with a 3 to 4 member work group, and we'll cover who that consists of. I know I'm on the committee. We'll cover that a bit later. Another action item was passed was to dissolve the Trees for Tomorrow ad hoc committee meeting, and also replace it with an ad hoc or a work group on it. Also, and that was that. Treasurer's report.
I emailed the treasurer's report earlier this afternoon. The only change from last month is that we have an additional quarter of interest in the money market account. Jesse and I are working to try to set up the new PayPal account, and she made a deposit to the new PayPal account, but it's not showing up, so we have to do some troubleshooting to figure that out. I did one thing today, and that was to verify the email address, but we still need to work on that. And so, and I have one check to write for domain renewals, and so that will be coming out of the checking account for next month. But that's it.
Got it. Okay, so I think we're going to have a motion to spend some of that money here in a little bit. But in the meantime, we have the committee reports, and that we lead off with the executive committee. I honestly don't remember talking about this, but I think this has always been the issue: is priority of funding sources such as grants. Rodney, do you have anything to add to that? I don't either. So, which we can carry into the steering committee. And there's also, how's it going, Russell?
Hi.
And there's also a mention of fundraising in that as well, and that's going to come up a little bit later in the promotions committee. Another item was to make sure and have minutes on time, and that is for the committee meeting agenda, which is going to take place on Monday, right, Rodney? Monday, and then those meetings from that from those committee meetings those minutes from the committee meetings will be due on Wednesday of next week. So it's the Wednesday after our committee meeting that the minutes are due. Furthermore, the Rodney had a great idea about a forester's corner or a forester's segment in our monthly meeting, where it would kind of be like what he's working on currently, or you want to cover that? You can explain it better than I can, Rodney.
Well, I basically during the meeting just requested a 5 minutes to deliver some educational content. But then some other folks had the idea that, any member could deliver educational content. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a Forrester's section. So it basically would be what we would call an educational short, a 5-minute, very short educational presentation to the rest of the tree council. So this would be 2 or 3 slides, very concise. And the reason I requested this is it would be an opportunity for me to start developing content that I could then take out into the community. So get a little bit of feedback from the tree council and then start talking to folks out there in the neighborhoods.
Sounds great. And I think I was one of the people who suggested that I'd be willing to contribute. There are a number of different seasonal issues that come up in tree care that may be of interest to you guys. I know there's been a high incidence of elm leaf beetle issues this year, for example. And if anybody has one around, like it, Nina, I think you have some on the right side of your house. So some common interest things I think would be a great thing to cover, really, for all of us. So this brings us into the discussion about what Rodney is currently working on, or is about to anyway. That's the ACC iTree eco study. And Rodney, can you take that?
Sure. Before I do, I'll just go back to the educational short. Another thought that came up was a day in the life. And this was Sean's idea, and I think it's a great idea that, it'd be kind of neat if everyone all the members and everyone in the tree council had the opportunity to just talk about, what a normal, like an average day might be for them. So we can all kind of get to know each other a little bit better in what we do and how we're functioning out there. I have been, so to lead into the next thing, I'm going to ask for a motion. I've been writing a grant for the last 5 weeks. It's going to be submitted to the Georgia Forestry Commission. Everything is in place. to send it in tomorrow. And the grant is a request for funding to be able to conduct an eye tree echo study. Partners have been lined up with University of Georgia, with Dr. Gordon serving as the project lead to hire student interns to collect data. And then they would also run some of the analyses and produce some summaries as well. So this would be a partnership between, it's an Athens-Clarke County project with the planning department serving a role, the UGA serving a role, and I would also like to ask if the Tree Council is interested in serving as a partner in this project as well. And what I essentially would ask the Tree Council is if they would be interested, if you all would be interested in committing to a minimum of 10 hours to prepare and deliver a presentation of some of the findings from the eye tree echo study. So this would basically set the Tree Council up as a partner to be able to serve an outreach and advocacy function in the community using some of the eye tree echo findings. And it would also set the Tree Council up to put some of these findings in its annual report to the mayor and commission. And I guess I'll open it up for questions.
So Rodney, we're going to take the results of the study and present it to the commission or the mayor or somebody else or the public based on work someone else has done. We're just the people that are presenting it.
Yes. So it would be some of the findings, and I'd be happy to be involved in preparing the presentation and explaining some of the results. It helps to strengthen the grant application itself. And it also, I was thinking more in terms of community outreach.
Okay. I mean, I do presentations all the time, so I'm happy to help with that.
Great.
Can I offer a little insight here about that angle? So you all are an appointed board or authority of Athens-Clarke County, which means that by design, the commission depends on you for input and updates about the community forest in Athens. So it's not unusual for the mayor and commission to receive status reports or annual reports from you all. And so if you choose to fulfill this role, one is it acknowledges that role that you have by ordinance. And then the second is, in cases like this, it's actually a little easier for you all to get a message to the mayor and commission than it is for Athens-Clarke County staff. We have very regulated processes in which we bring it forward. And so it's just an easier way to create that line of communication. And it's similar to what we see out of groups like the Greenway Commission and the Historic Preservation Committee.
Sounds like a great idea to me.
I agree. I feel like we should commit to helping with this project as much as we can. That 10 hours, is that like per person, Rodney, or that's like what you expect the entire like collective time?
No, it's being written into the grant as 10 hours total. And the value of that for 2020 is $27.20 per hour for volunteer time, which comes out to $270. So it's a minor commitment, but it does put the Tree Council in the position to be involved, and I think it would be a great partnership.
Me too.
Why don't you go ahead? It looks like there's a motion prepared. Why before we have any further discussion, why don't we introduce that motion and have it voted on so we can talk further about it.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion for this Community Tree Council to officially accept the invitation to become a partner in the Athens-Clarke County iTree Echo Project by committing at least 10 hours to the development and delivery of a community outreach activity or activities in Athens in October 2021 to communicate selected findings from the study that informs citizens about features of their urban and community forest.
I second.
All right. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Ayes did it. Great. Look forward to helping with that, Rodney.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll be really good to see what some of that information looks like.
Okay. That brings us to the interview work committee, and I'm the chair of this work committee. Bill, Pam, Mark, and Mary, we're all on that as well. We need to advertise for openings, and in the past we've posted on WGA, the radio station, the CPC website, of course, Flagpole, and Rodney, the ACC public information outlets, I guess. We need to come up with content for that advertisement. And we also need to revise the questions. They're currently, redundant. And some of the notions we thought of in our meeting was like allowing applicants time to review, learn a little bit about us, so we'll provide for them informational items, like our mission, who we are, and what we do, and which would include the bylaws and stuff. It is, and then we don't waste each other's time, I guess, simply put. But yeah, so that's that. And Pam, I don't know. Looks like you and I are the only ones here. So, Rodney, do you happen to have the interview question list somewhere, Rodney?
I do, and I don't know why my name isn't on there. This is something that I think it's a natural for me to be involved on some level, even if it's just submitting information to the mayor and commission office. I did send out the old interview questions to the work group members or the old interview committee members, and so I don't know if people received those or where they went, but I do have them.
They're probably buried in my email somewhere.
Okay. Got it. Well, I'll look for those. Maybe we can figure out. Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm confused. I see a list of the work committee meeting. In the title, there's a list with you, Sean, as chair, and several of us. It looks like that might be the old interview committee members. But then in the first bullet, I see Sean, Edith, Jim, and Rodney as those who have agreed to serve on the work group, which would be the new. So clarification there, perhaps?
Great, thanks. I'll make note of that for the minutes. So it's me, Edith, Jim, and Rodney. So sorry about that, Bill. Yeah, I did some copying and pasting in the old agenda.
So is the intent of this then just to get the questions ready before we go through the next round of interviews? Whenever that is, I don't know when that is.
We need to find some people.
Who's rotating off, or do we need to fill holes that are still there?
So we actually brought this up prior to our meeting, but Joe is rolling off. He is the president-elect. Jesse is rolling off. Corey, your term expires. Nina, I think you're heading out. You're going on sabbatical, if I'm not mistaken. And then we need 2 new members at minimum.
And how soon do they have to be chosen?
Rodney,
It would really be good to have interviews completed by September at the late, or excuse me, by December at the latest, so that the information can be sent into the mayor and commission's office, and they can be put on the agenda to be nominated as early as possible in the next year.
okay, so interviews completed by December, right?
At the latest, yes.
So if anyone has anybody in mind, please share that with one of us. And once again, that's either myself, Edith, Jim, or Rodney. But in the meantime, we'll get working on the content for the radio station flagpole.
I can go ahead and resend that information out to you, Edith, and Jim.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so that brings us to the Trees for Tomorrow work group committee. And that's Phil, Nina, Joe, Mary, and Rodney. Who's Phil, are you the chair on that?
I presume that I continue to chair that as a working group now, rather than as a committee or an ad hoc committee. It looks like that the listing or the review on the agenda looks accurate to me and appears to cover where we are at this time. We did not have, I was out of town, I guess, for our last August meeting, and we did not have a meeting either as a working group or as a ad hoc committee thereafter. So I have no additional information. If anyone else does, or announcements or future possibilities, perhaps now, if it's brief, would be a good time to hear those. If not, I can give a brief report that I don't know the status of the most recently planted trees from Arbor Day on the Firefly Trail. I think that Landscape was taking care of them when last I got information. I have been watering the 5 or so trees at the dog park. They had a brief period of time this summer when they looked pretty dire, but the rains have picked up. The weather has moderated a little bit, and I have continued to water them. They are leafing, re-leafing, and putting on some growth now, and look real good. So we've done well with this year's. We need to begin to think about the availability of funds and plans for plantings for this coming growing season now.
I could add a little bit. Todd Miller with Leisure Services expressed interest in having more trees planted on the Firefly Trail now that more sections have been completed. So I know Leisure Services is very much interested in continuing what's been going on with that. The trees that were planted for Arbor Day on the Firefly Trail, they've been put into landmark tree status, so they're protected by ordinance for that. And the last time I was up there, they were doing well, and the parks crews were watering them.
Excellent. Well, perhaps we need to convene a working group field trip again at some point in the near future with Todd to get together on the Firefly and take a look and brainstorm with some species ideas and so forth, locations. I will get in touch with Todd and see what we can set up there. Anyone also, just a quick reminder, I don't think there's anything rigid about the membership in these working groups, and anyone who feels left out or wants to be a part of a group such as the Trees for Tomorrow group, reach out to me at my email address, and you'll certainly be included in any plans that we have. Thank you.
Rodney or Bill, can you clarify where along the Firefly they're thinking about adding more trees?
I cannot. I thought we had sort of gotten to the stopping point when we last visited the site. We walked through up to the old intersection where the racetrack was being put in, and that was kind of the end of the line at that time. I'm not sure what's been developed since. Rodney?
So the area around the racetrack is definitely ready to be planted and surveyed. And I think there's a strip behind the racetrack as well. And Todd was saying a couple other areas, but we would need to ask him what he's thinking on those.
Well, we can get in touch with Todd and then pass that information along.
If it works for everyone, we could go ahead and schedule, the way we have been with the committee meetings, a little bit of time for the interview work group and also for the Trees for Tomorrow work group just behind the steering committee meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Now we're on to the anything else on the Trees for Tomorrow? Looks like we covered.
Yeah.
Now we're on to the promotions committee, and Bill, let's see, are you still on this committee, the promotion?
I see my name listed. I'm not sure if that was just the attendees at the most recent meeting, or if I don't know.
So once again, I copy and pasted some things from the August meeting, and I'm sorry if I've lost track of the current status, but nonetheless, it looks like the promotions committee is basically not present.
I sat in on a little of that meeting in August, but I don't have anything or information to share.
Okay. Rodney, what's the protocol when no one's present? That consists of the promotion committee. I mean, they do have an action item to vote on the purchase.
So there's really not much of a protocol per se. It's just sort of a matter of practice or custom for the tree council. So if someone wants to forward that motion, I guess that could be, anybody can make a motion. Otherwise, we'll have to talk with the tree council next month about, any questions or discussions they have.
Right.
I'm on that committee, but I wasn't able to attend the last individual committee meeting because I had court through the entire time block. So I don't have any updates, but I am present, if that makes a difference as far as, yeah.
Sorry for the oversight there. Maybe you joined late. Maybe that was since the August meeting. But so you once again you weren't present at the committee meeting, you say?
Correct. Yeah, I was there for the July meeting, but the August meeting time block, I was in court at work the entire time, so I missed it.
Got it. Okay. So can we just go ahead and vote for the approval of these supplies, and ask for an explanation next time?
That seems like a good idea to me. Otherwise, everything is going to be set back a month or so, and I trust them to. There are no specific details about individual items that the money will be spent for. Just that it's spent for promotional materials, and it has a list of possibilities there. So I would move for them. That the tree council vote to approve to spend $250 on promotional materials, including to include but not exclusively prints of the tree that owns itself, stickers, pins, and so forth.
Do we have a second? We have a second.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye. And I bet Stacy's cool with it. So I get it. It's been fast. Okay. Policy committee meeting. Action item and discussion was select new promotions committee chair. This is tied in with Rodney's involvement in the iTree study, and currently seeking volunteers for that role, chair of the policy committee meeting.
Yeah, is that a typo in the agenda that Rodney will no longer serve as chair of promotions? Should that say policy?
That should, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'll just give a little background to this. There's a couple things on here. I should probably just talk about it. I've been serving as the chair of the policy committee, and the committee has done some pretty good work, and I am getting to the place where I'm getting spread pretty thin, and with the iTree Echo study coming up, I'm not going to have the time to dedicate to the policy committee, so I need to step down as chair. And there's a second item on here, a second bullet point, and I want to express that this is not connected. Like, basically, it just talks about, we were asking for feedback from the tree council on some questions, on what is wanted and why about the tree ordinance, and also about a management or strategic approach. And when I put this on the agenda, I was a little bit disappointed because we had only received 3 responses to these questions, but since then I've had a chance to think about it, and the truth is everybody's really busy, and it is likely that questionnaire got lost in the barrage of emails that have been going out from me. So they're not related at all. I really appreciate the work everybody's doing, um, and I just, would love to see what people have to say about that, because I think it really helps to get an idea of where, every time I ask these questions, I learn something new, and I think it would help us all to learn something a little bit new. So that's really all that's about.
Kind of looked at it. I just didn't have time to answer it because it required some thought.
It's a really busy time for people, for sure, this time of year.
Rodney, I'd like to thank you for putting that out there, and to tell you that it's the first time that I have, and I haven't completed it yet. I got distracted by another task, but it's the first time that I have sat down and studiously read through the ordinance, or begun to read through the ordinance, and it's been helpful to me. I obviously should have done it long before, but I do think it's helpful to get that kind of feedback, knowledgeable feedback from people, those who have actually taken the time to read the ordinance and think about it. I'm not clear about, there's a fair amount in there that I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, and it's kind of I yield to those who have spent time hashing this out and came up with it to begin with. So perhaps as the feedback comes in, that could be shared back to the membership, and it might stimulate me to decide one way or the other about some of the things that I'm ambivalent about right now.
Sure. So let me explain where this is coming from a little bit. It might make a little more sense. It's basically part of the what you would consider methodology for deliberative democracy, and receiving feedback from stakeholder groups, or other, from citizens or anyone who's interested. And it's an interesting question because it's open-ended, and it gives people a chance to provide feedback, on things that maybe otherwise wouldn't be considered. And so in that way, it's a great forum to produce questions that could then be later put on a survey. So the open-ended aspect of it is a learning process for people that engages with stakeholders, and I've always found it super helpful. It always causes me to think about something I've never thought of before, and to understand the perspective of other people better. So in that way, there's no wrong answers, and it also kind of helps to identify some of the outliers as well, because you can get some pretty crazy answers sometimes, especially if it's an open forum.
Well, I'm always leery of questionnaires that they kind of encourage you to identify a problem, even if you really don't think there is a problem or didn't see a problem. It's as if you're being prodded to give a response. So everything looks good is a valid response as well, I suppose you're saying. Okay.
Yes. And the rest of the information on there is just some of the notes from the promotion, from the policy committee meetings. But really, at this point, there's an open position for the chair. So if there is anyone who is interested in serving as the chair, this would be a great time to come forward.
I would definitely be interested in serving as the chair for policy. It's available, or people think that's viable.
You are a brave soul, Mary Songster.
Brave or stupid, that's what they say.
Much appreciated.
Okay, so I make a motion that we accept Mary's willingness to stand as chair on the policy committee.
I would second that.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Great, it is passed.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mayor. Okay, so once again, Rodney, these are kind of take-home items. You know, like I read the ordinance. Do you want to go through all these bulleted items in this, or should we just use this as homework?
Yeah, that's up to you. This is really just the notes from the policy committee meeting. Since I'm stepping back, I just wanted to throw some information out there for people to be able to consider. I don't know if we need to discuss it during this meeting, but if you want to, I'm happy to talk about some of it.
I'm good on taking it home.
One thing I would add is if people go back and look at the question with the new information, like, don't think of it as trying to answer Rodney's question, as just try to more think about the tree council and where the direction that you started with thinking it was going to go, or future think it should go, or a place that we've missed. So the answering the question, I think, is a little intimidating, actually, because I don't feel like I have the answer, but I may have an opinion. So think of it more as an opinion piece.
Sorry in advance. I'm at work with a bunch of loud objects, so if it's blaring you, sorry. But okay, now we're off to the education committee, and Stacy, Lee, Edith, and Mark and Seth. Looks like you guys are on that. I'm not sure who's the chair. Is that Edith? Or Stacy?
No, it's actually Mark, and he's not here today. So
Yep.
even if he wasn't chair, we would make him chair.
Mm-hmm.
He's not here today. But we decided, and Edith, you can jump in, but we basically sort of, we're going to meet when he comes back again. So there wasn't really any new updates. Except for I do have an update, because I am going to have to go in a minute, just to let everybody know about the grant really quick. Is that I did a little check-in, because they're supposed to let us know. They were supposed to let us know by the end of last week, I guess, by the beginning of this week. So I've been checking in. I haven't heard anything yet. So just to let you know, still waiting. I was hoping to be able to report on it today, but I'll send an email out.
I'll just add that we talked a little bit. Lee was focused on professional education. She's not here now either. I don't think. No, I don't see Lee. About presenting to the folks that plant the trees, and just doing educational instruction. And I think this had been maybe done in the past, so she was going to reach out to a person, I believe, that used to be on the committee. I can't remember her. Was her last name McKnight?
It sounds like Maureen O'Brien, perhaps. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Very good. So she was going to talk with her about what had been done. And then I know that, Stacy, I think you and Mark had been reviewing the materials, that what had been done already, and just some of the pamphlets, and had found some that they thought would work. Some were a little too academic for the general public, so it was thought it'd be best to gear it down to a level that most folks would understand. And then I was looking into community education, and I found a couple of sites that were provided virtual education. And we had talked a little bit about perhaps in coordination with the promotions committee, adding this to our website. But one was links to Trees Atlanta. They have printable activities for youth, like I can name 50 trees, excuse me, tree life cycle, urban tree tracker. They had some adult videos as well. Then there was another link, which was interesting. It's the Captain Planet Foundation. They had a book called Tree is Nice. And also Arbor Day Foundation, of course, had some programs like Carly's Kids Corner with printable activity sheets. Then there's a Green School program, Benefits of Trees, Trees Around the World, Leaf ID. So I don't know if there's any protocol for linking, using our website to link to other websites, if we have to. I guess Stacy you could better answer that question.
You did a good job. I mean, I think we're just still exploring. Seth sent us some information, and which, it's really good information, but I think we're just trying to decide in terms of like who our audience is and really like what the best information is for a wide variety. So we're still just sort of coming through some of that stuff. And there is some stuff out there that I think we'll plan on using too, but just decisions and haven't been made yet.
Okay, got it. Thanks, guys. So this brings us to new business and specifically fundraising. I think this was listed earlier in the agenda, but there was a brief discussion of establishing an ad hoc work group consisting of 3 to 4 members, where each person would seek out potential donors and fundraise. And this would include researching old donors as well, and reaching out to them. And also, I'm not sure about this, but assign advertising opportunities, I guess. But this was all, we were going to potentially add this to the promotions committee, if I'm not mistaken. Does anybody else remember that? This can fall in line with the promotions scope of work, really. Are we, is everybody on a committee, by the way, here? I think from memory, I believe so. Of course, Mary, so, Rodney, do you think any advice here, or should we just table that, I guess?
Well, there's plenty of time. So if people wanted to talk about this a little bit and work through some things, you have that opportunity.
I did want to add to this, start thinking about like all the money, and I've been just starting to organize and make a timeline of like the grants that we've applied for and the ones that we've been successful or not successful, and have a timeline of that money and that. So that I would like that all. It makes sense to me if that was all together. So we're not asking for individual donations. We have some overall budget, like where is our budget? How do we make a budget? How do we know how much money to raise how's that happen?
Good question.
So there is an opportunity to request a budget for the tree council from the mayor and commission. Other councils have county appointed budgets, so that's one option. Otherwise, I think the council has been very much dependent on donations.
No, what I mean is even in asking for donations, like I'm unclear that we have an annual goal for money we need to raise for the amount of plantings we want to do for projects like isn't defined. And so like just defining the scope will help us know like what's the target, you know, if we hit it or not. You know, so like for this process in the fundraising, it'd be useful, I think, to also include, you know, what our target is, our goal for how much have we spent in the past on plantings? Do we want that to be double? Is that a sufficient amount that we've raised in the past? You know, so otherwise, I feel like we'd always be scrambling for funds as opposed to, you know, a more focused approach. So not to ask for budgetary items from the commission, but for us to make our own scope of what's a useful amount of money wherever we get it from.
You make a good point, Mary. I think, and to my knowledge, in my tenure on the council, we have never developed a budget, certainly not an annual budget. It's been more of a, how much money do we have on hand? How much can we spend? Sort of an opportunistic thing. I think what you're suggesting is obviously is a much more organized approach and would lend itself to seeking funds in the future. However, that having been said, what that would entail is something that we've bumped up against and talked a little bit about, which is devising some kind of a set of goals at the beginning of each year for what we hope to accomplish that year. Once we do that, if we know how many trees we hope to plant or how many grants that we seek and how much additional funds we would need to complete those projects, then we can fill that out and have an idea, as you said, when we go to people or to organizations to ask, we have a reason for why we don't just want all the money we can get. We want this amount for this and this amount for that. So we probably need to work to become more intentional about that. And as I said, there's been some talk about the steering committee and the executive committee and committee chairs at the beginning of the year coming up with a plan for the year. And so if we do that and do a good job of it, that will move us toward developing a budget as well, I think.
So even get a little bit more meta, it seems like it would like the master planting plan and planning's tree ordinance, you know, that if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Is that Mark Twain? Is that? So we may not make it, but I think it's better to have a goal, because it is hard to fundraise without specifics, you know. It's hard to get grants without, you know, an overreaching goal. So.
Yeah, I think in the past, we haven't really raised a lot of money through fundraising for like private donations, maybe just a little bit, but not very much. And primarily the money that's come in has been for a project that we defined when we applied for the money. So like all the projects that we've done with the AHA. And in those cases, like we know the scope of the work because we're writing this proposal and we know how much it's going to cost. And so we go through and we follow through on that. And there have been times in the past when this committee has been so small that we really couldn't have taken on any other projects than what we did. But I think now we're in the position where we could take on more. But you know, I don't know if this helps, Mary, but just so that you get an idea, like $5,000 a year going towards a tree planting project at EHA that's kind of what we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years. And, you know, I guess the other part of this is that we can't plant trees anywhere. And we've also run into problems finding places where we can get permission, where we know the plantings will be beneficial and where we can get permission. AHA has provided us with a seemingly limitless opportunity, which is why we've sort of stuck with that. But prior to that, we had a planting project along the Millage corridor, and surprisingly, private, you know, landowners were not amenable to. Many of them were not amenable to planting trees, which, you know, would have been free. But so yeah, so I hope that helps, and I think that absolutely, if we are going out to the public and asking for donations, that we should have at least like a scope of what we can actually handle in a given year. But like up until now, we have not had that problem because we just haven't gotten a lot of donations.
I can throw out there, I have started tracking right-of-way spaces that would be very good planting spots. So I can also provide a wealth of public space, right-of-way spaces where trees can be planted.
Well, the AHA, you make a really good point as well, but the AHA, we have been able to plant up to and using all of those funds for the grants that have come through. But in every case, we would go to the site and we would limit ourselves to the number of trees that we thought that grant would pay for. We could have planted more each time. If we had had more money, it could have come from another source besides the grant itself, of course. But there is a limit to the manpower and the support that we as the council can provide as well. I still think that the committee by committee approach or working group by working group approach could help sort of focus us on how much money we actually could use in a year.
And I do appreciate, Nina, especially like just can do, you know, having everyone, you know, doing many things in the community. But I do think if we just sort of start, I like the idea of the committees at the beginning of the year, whenever the beginning of the year is, just have some kind of even pie in the sky kind of wish list. And once we make that groove, then it's part of the organizational groove of where we're thinking a little bit more holistically, I think, about the money instead of just getting a piece here and a piece there. It could increase our efficiency without having to increase the workload, but the initial workload is real.
True. You know, I'm sure, Mary, it wasn't your intent now, but you clarified to try to get money from the mayor and commission, but that process that we're talking about would certainly lend itself to something that we could then, on an annual basis, go to the commission and present to them as a request. It would be a good starting point for setting target amounts and identifying very closely what those amounts would be used for. Rodney has mentioned on several occasions that other commissions do have county money budgeted to them. So it's not like we would be plowing new ground. We would be plowing new ground for the tree council. That's all.
I would like, you know, as much as I love to plant trees, I've over time come to appreciate the critical importance of maintaining them after they've been planted. So any you know, a few trees is one thing, but if it starts becoming large numbers, I think it would be very important to also have that conversation about maintenance. So I would definitely like to put that on the wish list.
Rodney, didn't we talk a little bit about trying to identify the actual cost of a tree from planting it to maintaining it, from acquiring it to planting and maintaining it, and that would be all part of that. You know, it's hard enough probably to get the trees planted, but maintaining them is a cost that certainly has to represent it right people.
Yeah, that's a great thought, Jim. I think the retail for planting a tree is and establishing it to right around 700, maybe a little more. The two things you can do to really extend the longevity and the quality of the service life of a tree is to structurally plant it in the first 20 years of its life. It doesn't have to take long, maybe an hour per time. You know, an hour of an arborist time does have some value to it. So the market's been changing a lot, but it would be well worthwhile having that conversation. So, you know, 3 hours of an arborist time would make a humongous difference on a tree.
Actually, that's what we could ask of the commission. See, for instead of, I mean, it could be money in kind, so we can ask for them to give us Rodney's time for these projects that they would be paying Rodney for. So then they don't have to give us cash or change the budget, but they would have to direct Rodney to some resources that we need, as opposed to the other things he's doing in the community.
We're gaming to get you an assistant, Rodney, is what we're saying.
I really appreciate that, and I'll keep working to get better information to you all, because I think that, you know, having quality information will really help carry the conversation forward. Thank you.
I think it might bear saying also that if we approach them about paying for Rodney to do some of these new tasks, we might need to defund him for some of the tasks that he already has going, though. Either that or an assistant community forester or associate community forester might be a better approach, funding one of them, because Rodney's only got so much time in a week.
Rodney, do you do any internships from the School of Forestry Management at UGA? Does Athens reach out to that community and try to get them involved in the management of our community forest?
So, yeah, so in Athens, the management of the trees is shared by multiple departments and entities that are actually serving as contractors. So, for example, landscape management, you know, when they do right-of-way work, when they do park tree work, they're actually contracting with Leisure Services to do that. So it's fairly complex. I don't have the authority just to say yes to things. I have to have many conversations. And you know, so there, I don't directly control a maintenance budget. I'm a coordinator, so I have a lot of conversations about, you know, what is needed and what maybe some good ways to do things are, and an ability to work with contractors. So it is fairly complex, and I think to be successful, it would have to be probably, so there are no forestry crews in the county per se. It would really have to be framed currently in as contract labor.
Russell, if you don't mind chiming in, I'd wonder, the commission side, how do they think about this kind of thing from these committees? Like, if we come ask this, how do we make it, what do you need to hear, or what's useful for you guys to have to make a decision?
We can't hear you, Russell. You're on mute.
Sorry, keep going, guys. I was talking to Teddy's teacher on the phone. Sorry.
My question was to you, Russell, is like, any advice on what kind of information, like, does the commission want from us if we ask these questions? What y'all need to make an informed decision, and any best practices as far as approaching, like, is it better to ask for money for contractors or money for staff, or, just an opinion would be great.
Yeah, see, it's an interesting question because we almost have this like quasi-governmental board here with Rodney with us. So Rodney has his own budget channel that I'm sure he goes through with central services. But I feel like Rodney could share information about the needs of his office, and this board could help communicate and build support. I don't know. That's a very Rodney, what do you think? I mean, it's a tricky question because I don't want, I mean, we have to be careful to sort of respect Rodney's chain of command, if I'm making any sense here. I don't want Rodney to be in a position where he's viewed as advocating groups to support his budget outside of the typical budget process.
Yes, Russell, thank you. That you're exactly right about that. And I really appreciate that. I'm really not able to advocate one way or another. And so with that in mind, as far as like department budgets, things like that, really what I'm only able to do is to provide information about, I could assemble information about how much it costs to plant a tree, how much it costs to maintain it. I could provide information about how many trees the county has, how many trees it could plant if the funds were available, and then how much it would cost to maintain those trees. I can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think, one way maybe we get around it is by, advocating for funding. I don't know, and I'll get Rodney's feedback, of course, but advocating for funding for this group in particular. How does that, Rodney, how might that cross over? Can we separate that out? I mean, even from this group's funding, from your office's funding, how can that be?
So as far as I know, the council, the mayor and commission could vote to fund the council itself.
Yeah.
I think those are considered a basic operating budget. It's not really to conduct large projects. It's more for the purpose of providing supplies, ink and printing and that sort of thing. And I really would have to have some conversations to be able to answer that question better.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like supporting funds for any board and authority that they might get.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say, I almost view like the fundraising for this group as almost like a Friends of the Library type group. And so when it comes to budget time, I think it's important, it's important for members of this group to reach out to the mayor and commission and advocate for a robust funding of the interests that this group represents. But I think we just need to be mindful of representing that, we're speaking as individuals, and just protect Rodney, protect Rodney throughout that process. And I think it might be fine, maybe even to have this board pass a resolution around budget time to support funding for more trees or something like that. I don't know. I have to meditate on that question a little bit. Maybe talk to our county attorney. Sorry.
No, that's
So
okay.
I do have a couple
ahead.
thoughts that I could throw out to you. It may not be necessary to talk about specifically about a budget. That might be putting the cart before the horse. So one of the reasons I am so interested in conducting an iTree echo study is that we can get credible, scientifically peer-reviewed information, statistical information about the urban and community forests. With that information, you can then carry that to the community through the mayor and commission, and basically state what we have and potentially what it is we may need moving into the future. So some projections are possible through this study. And with that, you can begin to establish some strategically based goals, long-term goals that could line up with the 20-year comprehensive plan. It's much easier to talk about long-term goals than it is to start trying to instantaneously raise money for pet projects. A strategic approach can help to save the county a great deal of money by basically showing. So essentially, if you can be proactive in the maintenance and management of trees, you can save costs and risks that happen later on when the trees get old and start falling apart. And so that conversation can be carried forward for people to consider. And over time, after it has a chance to marinate, it may begin to make some more sense. This is also could be done in conjunction with sending out surveys to the community to ask, what it is the community would like in an urban forest. What type of amenities would they like it to provide, or benefits or not? So these are helpful questions and conversations, but it does take time. It's a lengthy process.
So I guess my question is to lobby for your long-term plan. I mean, we sort of overlap. You are doing this thing as the forester, but we as the community tree council support that mission of the forester. And the more information you have and the more comprehensive information you have, that is in line with the community tree council's goals as far as I can see the bylaws. So we should be advocating for funds for you. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you need to advocate for funds directly for me, but what I could say would be helpful, in order to, there were some limitations of the grant that I'm currently writing. I was hoping it would go over a period of 2 years. We could collect at least 30 plots for each stratification category or land use category. But we're not going to be able to do that. We're only going to be able to collect 20 plots or less for each of those categories. However, in the year following that, I hope to be able to collect some more data, because even 5 or 10 or 20 more plots can really help reinforce the statistics. And so, some of those type of things could be helpful. Volunteer time, qualified volunteer time, or a donation to be able to hire another intern or something like that. But I don't really know, and it really is not my place at all. I can't really. I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. I think it's important just to gather as much information as we can, and then make a very good, clear, concise presentations about what it is that we find out and what the implications are moving into the future. So one of the things that I am trained to do is look 40 years into the future, and I can speak to that. What the community and communities decide to do with that information, that's not really my place to talk about. That's basically where other people would have to have other conversations.
Rodney, I just wanted to clarify, when you say acquire plots, is this in conjunction with the Athens Land Trust, or who would lead?
It is not. It's an ACC government study. So the county manager approved an amount for matching funds. So we could ask the Georgia Forestry Commission to contribute in order to conduct a statistical analysis. So we'll be able to take a look at our community forest and to speak more accurately about it. So we'll have a better idea of what is out there, and then we can talk about that. So in a short term, like if you're interested in planting, I think a better approach is identifying planting spaces and then just talking about the trees, the cost of trees per unit. I think that makes the most sense.
I think in the long-term plan as well as a short-term plan. And so we can't get to the long-term plan without money. So I'm not thinking of it just being one thing. I am thinking of it, trying to broaden it to be a whole picture in line with the master planting plan, which would include maintenance and all those things, so I'm trying to figure out how do we get there, because that strengthens the group tremendously. The group is not strong if we're just cherry picking pet projects. That's, so it strengthens the group to work for the long-term goal, which I think is an excellent goal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Rodney and I have talked several times about this, but as the data are collected and then analyzed, and as you said, Rodney, the projections are made into the future for not only the benefits that accrue from having an urban forest, but the liabilities that also accrue if that urban forest is unmanaged or mismanaged. Once those data are the conclusions are made available, it seems then is when it would be incumbent upon us as an advocacy group to go before the mayor and commission and begin to lobby for not for a budget for us, but for a budget for the county, either in landscape management or community forester, whatever would be necessary to provide the kinds of capital investments on for arborist vehicles and equipment and so forth, or for funding for contract work to be done by arborists, so that those liabilities are minimized and that those benefits are maximized over the long period of time. But that wouldn't be lobbying for our own budget as such. It would be being a thorn in the side or a reminder to the county that if you want this forest and you want the benefits that come from it, then it doesn't just happen. It has to be, money has to be spent.
So yeah, and that's a part of the conversation I can't be involved in. A strategic management plan, a 20-year strategic management plan, it simply asks, what do we have, as far as the forests are conserved? What do we want? How do we get what we want? And are we getting what we want? It doesn't talk anything about money at all. But it does set up the potential to start developing 5-year plans and then 1-year work plans. So it allows for adaptive management, and it allows a process to be incorporated over time. And then, and by asking those questions, you can start kind of steering the ship, so to speak.
Well, it provides the information that is necessary to then begin having monetary financial conversations about.
If that's what the community wants, yes.
Right.
All right. I think, does that cover everything? Looks like. Anyone have anything else to add to the new business? Okay. Well, we're on time, and does anyone? I make a motion to adjourn the meeting, unless anyone else has anything else.
I can second.
All those in favor? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks a lot, guys. And once again, so we have our policy committee meetings coming up on Monday. Look forward to seeing you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. See you.